She pulled the trigger. The bullet slammed into the dirt 2 inches from his boot. The stranger didn't flinch, didn't move, just looked up at her with eyes that had already said goodbye to living. "Next one goes through your skull," Clara said, her voice steady as stone. "Give me a reason." The man's cracked lips moved. Barely a whisper. "Can't think of one, ma'am. Was hoping you'd do it for me." Behind her, 6 children pressed against the window, watching their mama decide whether to kill a man or save him. If you're ready for a story about shattered souls finding their way back to each other, stay with me until the very end. Subscribe now and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. 12 hours earlier, Caleb Mercer had made peace with dying. The trading post was empty, abandoned. Perfect place for a man to bleed out without bothering anyone. He pressed his palm against his shoulder. Blood oozed between his fingers, warm and thick. The bullet had gone clean through 3 weeks back, but infection didn't care about clean. Infection cared about neglect. About a man too tired to save himself. His horse stood nearby, head hanging low. "Sorry, old boy," Caleb muttered. "Brought you all this way for nothing." The animal snorted. Didn't move. Smart horse. Knew when a journey was over. Caleb closed his eyes and waited for the darkness to come. "Mister..." His eyes snapped open. A little girl stood 10 feet away, barefoot. Dress patched so many times the original color was just a memory. Hair tangled like she'd been running through brush all day. She was maybe 8 years old, and she was staring at him like he was a puzzle she intended to solve. "You're bleeding real bad," she said. Caleb blinked, wondered if fever had finally taken his mind. But she didn't fade, just stood there, waiting. "I'm fine," he managed. "No, you ain't." She stepped closer. "Ma says lying makes your face do a thing. Your face is doing the thing right now." Something twitched at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. He'd forgotten how to smile. "Your ma sounds smart." "She is. Smartest person I know." The girl crouched in the dust, balancing easy on bare feet. "She fixes things. Animals mostly. People too sometimes. You look like you need fixing bad." "I ain't worth fixing, little bird." "That's stupid." She crossed her arms. "Everybody's worth fixing. Ma says giving up on people is the easy thing, and easy things ain't usually right things." Caleb stared at this strange child who'd wandered out of nowhere with her dirty face and her fierce certainty. "What's your name?" "Wren." "What's yours?" Caleb Mercer." "You want to come home with me, Mr. Caleb?" The question landed somewhere deep, somewhere he'd thought had gone numb years ago. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" He gestured at himself. The blood. The rifle across his lap. The general disaster of his existence. "I ain't fit for company." "Ma don't care about fit." Wren stood up, brushing dust off her dress. "She cares about hurt. You're hurt. So you should come." "Your ma know you're out here talking to strangers." "I ain't supposed to." "No shame, just fact." "But I saw you from the rise and you looked sad. Real sad. The kind of sad that makes people do stupid things if nobody stops them." Caleb felt something crack in his chest. This child. This small, dirty, impossibly perceptive child had seen him. Really seen him. "How far is home?" he heard himself ask. 2 miles west. We got a house, chickens, a garden." Wren pointed toward the horizon. 6 kids counting me. Ma always makes extra supper. Just in case." "Just in case what?" "Just in case somebody needs it." She looked at him like this was obvious. "You need it bad, Mr. Caleb." He shouldn't go. Should send her away. Should die here quietly without dragging anyone into his mess. But Wren was already walking toward his horse, reaching up to stroke its nose. "Hey there, big fella. You got a little more in you." The horse lifted its head, nickered softly. "See?" Ren grinned. He says yes. You coming or not? Caleb looked at this barefoot child with her spring green eyes and her stubborn faith that he deserved saving. God help him. He was too tired to argue. Getting into the saddle nearly killed him. His vision went gray. His legs shook so bad, he almost slid right back off. But Ren was there, this tiny thing trying to steady a man 3 times her size. Easy, she said. 1 step at a time. That's what Ma always says. Your Ma says a lot of things. She's real smart, I told you. Caleb gripped the saddle horn with both hands. Staying upright was all he could manage. Ren started walking. The horse followed without being told. The land rolled by in gathering darkness. Caleb focused on breathing, on not falling, on the small figure ahead of him, bare feet silent on hard-packed earth. Ren? She glanced back. How many brothers and sisters you got? 5. She held up her hand, spreading fingers. Hope's 14. Acts like she's Ma's age. Sam's 12. Thinks he's the man of the house since Pa died. Lily's 10. Quiet as a church mouse. Eli's 6. Follows everybody around like a lost puppy. And Rosie's 3. Don't do much but be cute. Big family. Used to feel bigger. Ren's voice flattened. When Pa was alive. Caleb's grip tightened on the saddle horn. What happened to him? Army killed him. 3 years back. Fort Robinson. The words hit like a punch to the gut. He was a preacher. Ren continued, still walking, not looking back. Helped people the Army didn't want helped. Cheyenne mostly, women and children trying to escape. So they shot him for it. Caleb couldn't speak. His throat had sealed shut. Ma says he died doing what was right. Says that's the best way a person can go. Now Ren looked back at him. You was Army, wasn't you? I can tell by how you sit that horse. Yeah, he managed. I was. Ma hates the Army. Hates it deep down in her bones. Ren turned forward again. But she says there's a difference between the machine and the men inside it. Says some men got no choice. Some men got crushed up by it, same as the people they was ordered to hurt. She kept walking. Caleb kept following. And with every step, he understood more clearly what kind of house he was riding toward. A widow, 6 children. A husband killed by the same Army Caleb had served for 15 years. He should turn around. Should ride back into the darkness and let the night take him. But Ren's small figure kept moving forward. Still trusting. Still leading. And he kept following. The house rose from the darkness like something half buried. Adobe walls. Sod roof. Built low into a hillside like it was trying to hide from the world. Smoke drifted from a chimney. Chickens roosted near a small coop. A vegetable garden stretched toward a creek barely visible in the fading light. Survival. That's what this place was. Survival held together with sweat and stubbornness. Ren stopped and turned to him. Ma don't like surprises. I'm gonna tell her you're here. You wait. Before he could answer, she was running toward the house. Caleb sat on his horse swaying in the saddle and wondered what the hell he'd gotten himself into. Then his body decided for him. The last of his strength gave out. He slumped forward. The world tilted sideways. He was falling. Voices. A woman shouting. Children crying out. Strong hands grabbed him before he hit the ground. I got you. The voice was right in his ear. Sharp. Controlled. Furious. Don't you dare die in my yard. Caleb tried to speak. Couldn't remember how. Hope get water. Clean water. Sam bring the medical kit. Lily keep the little ones inside. Move. Footsteps scattered in all directions. Ren, what were you thinking bringing a stranger here? He was dying, Ma. I couldn't just leave him. You could've. You should've. But even as she said it, the woman was dragging Caleb toward a small building. Help me get him to the granary. They hauled him inside, dropped him on burlap sacks. Caleb's eyes fluttered open. Lamplight. A woman's face above him, sharp-featured and furious. Auburn hair escaping from a braid. Eyes the color of whiskey held up to firelight. "Can you hear me?" "Yeah." "Good. How long has this wound been infected?" "Don't know. Week maybe." "Week." She was already cutting away his shirt, hands quick and brutal. "You're lucky you ain't dead already." "Wasn't trying to be lucky." Her hands stopped, just for a second. Then she was working again, cleaning the wound with something that burned like hellfire. Caleb bit down on a scream. "There's cloth in here," worked its way deep. She dug into the wound with something metal. "Hold still." He couldn't hold still. Every nerve in his body was on fire. "Sam, hold his arms, hope his legs. Don't let him move." Weight pressed down on his limbs. Young faces above him, scared but determined. The woman dug deeper. Caleb's vision went white. Got it. The pressure released. Cool air hit the wound. Then bandages tight and professional. "He's burning up," someone said. The teenage girl. Hope. "Fever's gonna get worse before it gets better. We need to keep him cool, keep the wound clean, and pray infection hasn't spread too far." "Why are we helping him?" Hope's voice was hard. "We don't know anything about him." "Because your sister brought him here. Because I ain't gonna let a man die in front of my children." The woman stood up. "And because God's watching even if nobody else is." Caleb's eyes found hers. "Thank you," he whispered. "Don't thank me yet." Her face was stone. "You might wish I'd let you die before this is over." Then the darkness took him. 3 days. That's how long the fever held him. 3 days of fire and ice, of nightmares that felt more real than waking, of faces he'd tried to forget swimming up from the darkness to accuse him. Sometimes he heard voices. The woman giving orders, children moving around him, small hands pressing cool cloths to his forehead. Once he could have sworn he heard Wren talking to him. "You gotta wake up, Mr. Caleb. You gotta. I didn't bring you all this way for nothing." He wanted to tell her he was trying, that some part of him was fighting to come back, but the words wouldn't come. On the third night, the fever broke. Caleb opened his eyes to gray dawn light filtering through cracks in the wooden walls. His shoulder throbbed, but the fire was gone. The desperate burning had faded to something almost bearable. He was alive. For a long moment, he just lay there staring at the rough ceiling, trying to remember how he'd gotten here. The trading post. The little girl. The ride through darkness. The woman's hands pulling poison from his wound. He sat up slowly. His head swam, but held steady. The granary door stood open. Morning sounds drifted in. Chickens. Children's voices. The rhythmic thunk of an axe hitting wood. Caleb got to his feet and made his way to the doorway. The sight that greeted him stopped his heart. 6 children. They were scattered across the yard like wildflowers in a field. A teenage girl with her mother's auburn hair was hanging laundry, her movements sharp and efficient. A boy of about 12 attacked a woodpile with an axe, putting his whole body into each swing. A quiet girl sat on the porch steps mending something with careful stitches. Wren was chasing a younger boy around the chicken coop, both of them laughing. And a tiny girl with golden curls sat in the dirt near the garden, having what looked like a very serious conversation with a handful of pebbles. In the middle of it all stood the woman. Clara. He'd heard someone call her Clara during the fever. She was tall, lean, built from hard work and harder choices. Her face was weathered, but not old. Sun and wind and grief had marked her, but underneath was something unbreakable. She turned and saw him standing there. Their eyes locked across the yard. Everything stopped. The children froze. Even the chickens went quiet. Clara crossed the distance between them in long strides. The children watched tense as coiled springs. "You're up?" "Yes, ma'am." "How's the shoulder?" "Better, thanks to you." "Don't thank me." Her voice could have cut glass. "Don't thank me until you're gone from here and we never see each other again." Caleb nodded. "Fair enough. Here's how this works." She planted herself in front of him, arms crossed, eyes blazing. You stay in that granary. You don't come near my house. You don't talk to my children without me present. You eat what we can spare, which ain't much. You rest until you can ride. Then you leave, and you never come back. Understood. And if you so much as look wrong at any of my kids, I would never harm a child. The words came out harder than he intended. Whatever else I am, I ain't that. Men say a lot of things. Clara didn't blink. I learned a long time ago to watch what they do instead. She turned to leave. Ma'am. She stopped, but didn't turn around. Your daughter saved my life. I know you didn't want her to. I know you've got every reason to hate a man like me. But she did it anyway, and I owe her a debt I can't repay. Clara's shoulders tightened. Wren's got a soft heart. Sees good in everybody, even when it ain't there. Now she looked back at him, and her eyes were filled with something complicated. I pray to God every night she don't learn different the hard way. Then she walked away, leaving Caleb alone with 6 pairs of eyes watching him from across the yard. The boy came first. Sam, 12 years old, jaw set like he was ready for a fight. He appeared at the granary door that afternoon, arms crossed blocking the light. Ma says you was cavalry. Caleb looked up from the cup of water he'd been nursing. That's right. You kill people. Yeah. Indians. Caleb held the boy's stare. Some. My pa helped Indians. Cheyenne. Helped him escape when the army was going to let him starve to death. Sam's voice shook, but he didn't back down. They killed him for it. Shot him like a dog in front of everybody. I know. Wren told me. So you understand why I want you gone? I do. Then why are you still here? Caleb set down the cup. Because I can't ride yet. Because your ma's too decent to throw out a dying man. And because your sister asked me to stay. Wren's 8. She don't know nothing. Maybe. Or maybe she knows things the rest of us forgot. Sam's hands clenched into fists. You ain't my pa. You ain't never gonna be my pa. And the second you're strong enough to sit that horse, I want you gone. Fair enough? Sam stared at him for a long moment, looking for something. Weakness, maybe, or lies. Then he turned and stalked away. Caleb watched him go and saw himself at that age. Angry, scared, trying so hard to be strong enough to protect people he couldn't possibly protect. Hope came next. She brought his supper that evening. Set it down just inside the door without stepping over the threshold. Ma says to eat everything. We don't waste food. Thank her for me. Hope didn't leave. She stood there, arms folded, studying him like something she'd found under a rock. I remember my pa. Caleb looked up. I was 11 when they killed him. Old enough to understand. Old enough to remember everything. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned. He used to say that every person carries a light inside them. Even bad people. Even the ones who do terrible things. He believed that, right up until they put a bullet in his chest. Caleb said nothing. There was nothing to say. I don't believe it anymore. Hope's chin lifted. Some people are just dark straight through. And I think you might be one of them. You might be right. I know I'm right. She stepped back. Eat your food, get strong, and get out of here before you bring whatever's chasing you down on my family. She disappeared into the darkness. Caleb ate alone, tasting nothing, and wondered if she was right about the darkness inside him. Lily came on the second morning. She didn't speak. Just appeared at the granary door with a bundle of clean bandages and a jar of something that smelled like herbs. She was 10. Quiet face, watchful eyes, moved like a deer that might bolt at any sudden sound. Ma said to change your bandages. She didn't want to do it herself. She's busy. I help with doctoring. Lily stepped inside, setting her supplies on an overturned crate. "Sit still. I'll be quick." Her hands were gentle as she unwrapped his shoulder. Professional. She'd done this before. "You're good at this," Caleb said. "Ma taught me. I learned fast." Lily cleaned the wound with careful strokes. "I like fixing things, making them better." "What else do you fix?" "Animals mostly. Birds with broken wings, rabbits caught in snares. Once a coyote pup that got separated from its mother." She applied fresh bandages, fingers moving with practiced ease. "Ma says I've got healing hands. Pa used to say the same thing." "You remember your pa?" "Some. Not as much as Hope and Sam, but some." Lily tied off the bandage and stepped back. "He was kind. That's what I remember most. Kind to everybody, even people who weren't kind back." She gathered her supplies. "Ren says you're sad deep down. Says that's why she brought you here." Lily paused at the door. "I think she's right. I can see it in your eyes. The same look Ma gets sometimes when she thinks nobody's watching." Then she was gone, and Caleb sat with the weight of a 10-year-old's observation pressing down on his chest. Eli found him that afternoon. The boy just appeared the way 6-year-olds do. One moment the doorway was empty, the next a small figure stood there with blonde curls and blue eyes and a face full of curiosity. "What you doing?" Caleb had been staring at the wall, thinking about things he'd rather forget. "Nothing much." "That's boring." Eli wandered inside like he owned the place. "I'm bored too. Ren won't play with me. She's doing chores. Sam's always doing chores. Hope tells me to go away." "What about Lily?" "She's reading. She always reads." Eli plopped down on the dirt floor. "What's your name again?" "Caleb." "That's a funny name. Never heard it before." Eli picked up a piece of straw and started twisting it. "Ma says you was a soldier. Is that true?" "Yeah." "Did you ride horses?" "Every day. I love horses." Eli's face lit up. "We got one, but she's old. Ma says she's retired." "What's retired mean?" "Means she worked hard her whole life, and now she gets to rest." "Oh." Eli considered this. "That's nice. Everybody should get to rest when they're tired." He looked up at Caleb with an expression that held no suspicion, no fear, just open, innocent curiosity. "Are you tired, Mr. Caleb?" The question hit somewhere deep. "Yeah, son. I'm pretty tired." "Maybe you can be retired too. Stay here and rest like our horse." Eli grinned. "I'd like that. There's no other men here, just Ma and us kids. Gets lonely sometimes." "Eli!" Hope's voice cracked across the yard. "Get away from there right now." The boy scrambled to his feet. "I gotta go. Hope gets real mad when I don't listen." He paused at the door. "Will you be here tomorrow?" "I think so." "Good." And then quiet enough that his sister wouldn't hear, "I hope you stay a long time, Mr. Caleb. You seem nice." He ran off toward the house. Caleb watched him go and felt something shift in his chest. Something that had been frozen solid for years. Rosie was last. She toddled up to the granary the next morning, while Caleb was sitting in the doorway, letting the sun warm his face. 3 years old, golden curls, chubby cheeks, a rag doll clutched in one fist. She stopped about 5 feet away and stared at him with huge brown eyes. "Hi," Caleb said. Rosie stuck her thumb in her mouth and kept staring. "I'm Caleb. What's your name?" She pulled her thumb out long enough to say Rosie before popping it back in. "That's a pretty name." Rosie took a step closer, then another. Then she was standing right in front of him, looking up with an expression of intense concentration. Without warning, she held out her rag doll. "Baby," she announced. Caleb took the doll carefully. She's beautiful. What's her name? Rosie considered this question with great seriousness. Baby, she said again. Baby's a good name. Rosie smiled. It was like the sun coming out. She reached up and patted Caleb's knee with one sticky hand. Nice, she declared. Then she grabbed her doll back and toddled away, apparently satisfied with whatever judgment she'd made. Caleb sat there with a sticky handprint on his pants and something cracking open inside his chest. Clara found him working on the fourth day. He'd noticed the fence posts the day before. 3 of them rotted at the base, leaning at angles that would be funny if they weren't actively failing. He'd found tools in a shed behind the house, started digging before dawn. When Clara came out to check the chickens, she stopped dead at the sight of him waist-deep in a hole shovel in hand. What do you think you're doing? Caleb wiped sweat from his forehead. Fence needed fixing. I didn't ask you to fix it. No, ma'am. You didn't. She stood there, arms crossed, jaw tight. Your shoulder ain't healed enough for this kind of work. Shoulder's fine. It ain't fine. I know exactly how fine it is because I'm the one who cleaned the infection out of it. Caleb drove the shovel into the earth. You've been taking care of me for 4 days, feeding me, doctoring me. I don't take charity, I earn my keep. You ain't keeping anything. You're leaving soon as you're able. Then let me pay my debt before I go. Clara's eyes narrowed. For a long moment she just stared at him. Then something shifted in her expression. Not softening exactly, but something. There's 3 posts need replacing, cedars in the woodpile. You tear that wound open, I ain't fixing it again. She walked away without waiting for a response. Caleb went back to digging. An hour later, Sam appeared. The boy stood watching for a while, that same hostile tension radiating off him like heat. You're doing it wrong. Caleb straightened up. How so? Hole's not deep enough. Ground freezes hard in winter. Post'll heave right out if you don't go deeper. How deep? Sam hesitated. Clearly hadn't expected to be asked. 3 feet minimum. Pa always went 3.5 to be safe. Caleb nodded and started digging deeper. Sam watched. After a while, he picked up the post hole digger. I'll do the second one. They worked in silence for the next hour, side by side, not speaking except when necessary. When all 3 posts were set and tamped solid, Sam ran his hand along the top of the nearest one. Straight, he said. Solid, won't wobble. Your pa taught you well. Sam's jaw tightened. He taught me everything. Then he died, and I had to figure the rest out myself. That's a hard road for a boy your age. I ain't a boy. Sam's eyes flashed. I'm the man of this house now. I take care of my family, protect them. I can see that. Sam turned to face him full on. Why are you really here, mister? And don't give me that garbage about Wren bringing you. You could have said no. Could have ridden off into the dark and died somewhere else. Why'd you come? Caleb considered the question. Considered giving an easy answer. Instead, he told the truth. Because she looked at me like I was worth saving. And nobody's looked at me like that in a very long time. Sam stared at him. Something passed between them. Not trust. Not yet. But something that might grow into it if given enough time. 2 more fence sections need checking, Sam said finally. East side by the creek. You gonna help with those 2? If you'll have me. Sam picked up his tools and started walking. Caleb followed. Supper that night was at the table, in the house, with the family. Clara made the announcement without explanation, just pointed at a chair and said, "Sit." So Caleb sat. The table was chaos. Rosie was smearing food on her face. Eli was poking Wren, who was poking him back. Sam sat near the door like a guard. Hope kept shooting Caleb suspicious looks. Lily ate in silence, watching everything, and at the head of the table sat Clara. She didn't look at Caleb, didn't acknowledge him at all. just passed dishes and answered questions and managed her brood with the efficient authority of a general commanding troops. Sam, stop hunching. Eli, use your fork, not your fingers. Ren, stop tormenting your brother. Hope, eat something, you're skinny as a rail. I'm not hungry. I don't care. Eat. Caleb ate in silence, trying to be invisible. The food was simple but good. Beans and cornbread and a few precious slices of salt pork. More than he deserved. Mr. Caleb fixed the fence today. Ren's voice cut through the chatter. Sam helped. Clara's eyes flicked to her son. That true? Sam nodded without looking up. Posts are solid now. Good. More silence. I saw you working too. This from Eli, talking around a mouthful of cornbread. You dig real fast. Don't talk with your mouth full, Clara said automatically. You could stay and dig more holes. Eli continued, ignoring his mother. We got lots of things that need digging. Eli. Hope's voice was sharp. He's not staying. Why not? Because he's not. He's leaving soon as he's better. But I don't want him to leave. It's nice having another man here. Pa's been gone forever and... He's not Pa. Sam's voice cracked across the table like a whip. He'll never be Pa. Stop talking about him like he belongs here. Silence fell like a hammer. Rosie started to cry. Lily quickly picked her up, shooting a glare at Sam. Clara stood slowly. Her face had gone carefully blank. Eli, take Rosie outside. Ren, Lily, go with them. Sam, Hope, clear the table. But Ma, now. The children scattered. In seconds, only Clara and Caleb remained. She stood at the head of the table, hands flat on the rough wood, not looking at him. I need to know something. Ask. When you were in the army. Her voice was quiet, controlled. Did you hurt people who didn't deserve it? Caleb didn't look away. Yes. Clara's breath caught. Did you kill them? Some. Women, children. No, never that. Caleb's voice was steady. But I stood by while others did. I followed orders I knew were wrong. I was part of a machine that destroyed people who'd done nothing except exist in the wrong place. Clara's hands trembled against the table. Fort Robinson. No, ma'am. I was discharged before that. But I was at places like it, smaller, quieter, the kind of massacres that never made newspapers. And now you're here. Clara's voice had gone cold, sitting at my table, eating my food, playing with my children, while my husband is dead because he tried to stop the very thing you spent years doing. Yes. She looked at him then. Her eyes were bright with tears she refused to let fall. I should throw you out right now. Should have let you die that first night. Probably. So why can't I? Her voice broke. Why do I keep feeding you and doctoring you and letting my children get attached when everything inside me is screaming to put a bullet in you and be done with it? Caleb stood slowly. Because you're not like me. You never were. He moved toward the door, giving her space. You and your husband, you spent your lives trying to help people, trying to do right, even when the whole world punished you for it. That's who you are. It's who your children are going to grow up to be. He paused at the doorway. I spent my life following orders and pretending that made the terrible things I did somebody else's fault. It didn't. They were my hands, my rifle, my choice to keep pulling the trigger. He looked back at her. You want to know the difference between us, ma'am? You'd die before you'd hurt an innocent person. I already know I wouldn't, and I have to live with that every single day. Clara was trembling now, tears running down her cheeks despite her best efforts to stop them. Then why stay? Why put us through this? Because your daughter asked me to. And because God helped me when she looked at me like I was worth saving, I wanted to believe her. His voice dropped. Even though I know I'm not. He stepped out into the darkness. Caleb, He stopped. Clara appeared in the doorway, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. My husband's name was Ezra. He was a preacher, believed every soul could be redeemed no matter what they'd done. Her voice was raw. 3 years I've been hating every man in uniform, blaming them all for what happened to him. And now here you are bleeding in my barn, and my 8-year-old brings you home like a stray dog. She laughed bitterly. Ezra would say it was providence. Say God put you in our path for a reason. Do you believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. Clara crossed her arms, hugging herself against the cold. But I know my children need help. I can't give them. I know winter's coming, and there's work enough for 10 people, and I've only got 2 hands. And I know that my daughter sees something in you that I'm too angry to see. She stepped closer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay. You're going to work. You're going to prove to me that whatever you were before isn't what you are now. And if you can do that, if you can show me that a man can change, then maybe I can learn to stop hating long enough to let somebody help. Caleb felt something break open in his chest. I don't know if I can change. Neither do I. Clara's eyes met his. But Wren thinks you can, and I've learned never to bet against that child. She turned and went back inside. The door closed behind her. Caleb stood alone in the darkness, looking up at stars that had watched countless men make promises they couldn't keep. But for the first time in years, he wanted to try. Not for himself. He'd given up on himself a long time ago. For a barefoot girl with spring green eyes who'd looked at a dying stranger and seen something worth saving. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm Caleb hadn't expected. He woke before dawn, worked until his shoulders screamed, ate whatever Clara allowed him, collapsed into dreamless sleep, then did it all again. The fence posts were just the beginning. There was a chicken coop door hanging crooked on its hinges, a section of the barn roof that leaked when it rained, a well cover so rotted one of the children could have fallen straight through. Caleb fixed them all. He didn't ask permission, didn't wait to be told, just found what was broken and made it whole again. Clara watched him from a distance, always watching, like she was waiting for him to prove her right about men like him. He tried not to give her a reason. Sam started showing up most mornings. The boy never announced himself, just appeared at whatever job Caleb was working on and picked up a tool. They worked in silence mostly. Sometimes Sam would ask a question about technique. Sometimes Caleb would show him a trick his father had taught him years ago. Neither of them called it friendship. But it was something. Hope kept her distance. She'd pass by with laundry or water buckets, and her eyes would cut through him like broken glass. She didn't trust him. Probably never would. He understood that. Some wounds didn't heal just because you wanted them to. Lily brought fresh bandages every other day. She'd change his dressing with those gentle, capable hands, and sometimes she'd talk about the animals she'd helped. A hawk with a broken wing, a rabbit caught in a snare, small lives she'd fought to save. Caleb listened and wondered what it felt like to heal things instead of destroy them. Eli followed him everywhere. The boy was a shadow with blonde curls and endless questions. Why did fence posts need to go so deep? How did you know when wood was rotten? Could horses really sleep standing up? Did soldiers ever get scared? That last one caught Caleb off guard. They were mending a section of fence near the creek, Eli handing him nails one at a time when the boy asked it. Did you ever get scared? When you was fighting? Caleb stopped hammering, every time, but you kept fighting anyway. Yeah. Why? Because sometimes being scared don't mean you get to stop. Sometimes you got to do hard things whether you're scared or not. Eli considered this with the gravity only a 6-year-old could muster. Ma's scared a lot. She don't say so, but I can tell. Her face gets all tight and she talks real quiet, like she's holding something heavy inside. Caleb's chest tightened. Your ma's been through a lot. I know. Eli picked up another nail, studied it like it held answers. Pa died, and then people tried to take our house, and Ma had to chase them off with a rifle. Hope told me. I was too little to remember. People tried to take your house. Eli nodded. After Pa was gone. Men came and said Ma couldn't keep the land by herself. Said it wasn't right for a woman to have property without a husband. Ma told them to get off her porch, or she'd shoot them where they stood. The words hit Caleb like cold water. This wasn't just a widow surviving grief. This was a woman who'd fought to keep everything she had while the world tried to tear it away from her. Did she shoot them? Eli grinned. Shot near them, real close. They ran so fast they left their hats behind. Ma kept the hats. Uses them for scarecrows now. Despite everything, Caleb felt his mouth twitch. Your Ma's something else. I know. Eli's grin faded. But she's real tired, Mr. Caleb. Tired all the time. Even when she smiles, her eyes look heavy. He looked up with those innocent blue eyes. Maybe if you stayed, she wouldn't be so tired no more. Maybe she could rest sometimes. Caleb didn't know what to say to that. So he just went back to hammering nails and tried not to think about what it would mean to stay. Wren found him that evening at the creek. He'd finished the fence work and was washing the dirt off his hands in the cold water when she appeared beside him barefoot as always, like some wild thing that belonged to the land itself. You're still here, she said. Satisfaction clear in her voice. I'm still here. I knew you would be. She sat down on a rock and dangled her feet in the water. Ma thought you'd run off in the night. I told her you wouldn't. How'd you know? Wren tilted her head, considering. Because you got sad eyes, not mean eyes. Sad people run toward things, not away from them. They're looking for somewhere to stop hurting. Caleb stared at her. Where'd you learn that? Nowhere. Just something I figured out. She splashed her feet in the water. Animals are the same way. When they're mean, they run away and hide. When they're sad, they come closer, want somebody to be near. You think I'm like a sad animal? Wren grinned. A little bit. Like a dog that got kicked too many times but still wants somebody to pet him. Caleb laughed. Actually laughed. It came out rusty and strange, like machinery that hadn't been used in years. Wren's face lit up. You laughed. I made you laugh. Don't get used to it. Too late. I'm gonna tell everybody. Wren jumped up, already running toward the house. Ma? Ma? Mr. Caleb laughed. I heard it. Caleb watched her go and felt something warm bloom in his chest. Something that felt dangerously like hope. Clara was in the garden when he walked back to the granary. She was pulling weeds with the kind of aggressive efficiency that suggested she was working through something in her head. He should have walked past, should have given her space. Instead, he stopped. Eli told me about the men who came after your husband died. Clara's hands stilled in the dirt. Told me they tried to take your land. Told me you ran them off with a rifle. She sat back on her heels, not looking at him. What else did he tell you? That you kept their hats? Used them for scarecrows. A sound escaped her, almost a laugh. That boy talks too much. He's proud of you. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she stood brushing dirt off her hands. They came 3 times, different men, same message. A woman alone can't hold property. It ain't natural. It ain't right. She finally looked at him. First time I reasoned with them, showed them the deed. Ezra made sure my name was on everything, legal and proper. Didn't matter. What happened? They came back a week later, said papers could get lost, fires happen, accidents happen. Her jaw tightened. That's when I got the rifle. And the 3rd time Clara's eyes went cold. The 3rd time they brought torches. Tried to burn the chicken coop with my children watching. I put a bullet in the leader's shoulder and told the rest I'd kill them where they stood if they didn't leave. Did they? They left. Spread word in town that I was crazy, dangerous. A woman who'd lost her mind with grief. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. People stopped coming around after that. Stopped offering help. Stopped everything. But they also stopped trying to take what was mine. Caleb felt anger kindle in his chest, hot and sharp. Who were they? The men who came. Does it matter? It matters to me. Clara studied him for a long moment. Why? What are you going to do about it? He didn't have an answer, not one he was willing to say out loud. Whatever you're thinking, stop. Clara picked up her basket of weeds. I don't need a man to fight my battles. I've been fighting them alone for 3 years. I'll keep fighting them alone after you're gone. She walked past him toward the house. Caleb watched her go and made a silent promise to himself. If anyone tried to hurt this family, they'd have to go through him first. The children cornered him after supper 3 days later, all 6 of them, standing in a half circle around the granary door like a jury about to deliver a verdict. Hope had her arms crossed. Sam looked uncomfortable. Lily was watching with those quiet seeing eyes. Wren was bouncing on her toes. Eli was grinning. And Rosie was clutching her rag doll and staring at him like she wasn't quite sure what was happening. We need to talk to you, Hope said. Caleb leaned against the doorframe. All right, we had a meeting. Hope glanced at her siblings. Family meeting. We do that sometimes when there's big decisions. What kind of decision? Whether you should stay or go. Caleb's gut tightened. I thought that was your ma's call. It is. But we wanted to tell you where we stand. Hope's chin lifted. So you know. Fair enough. Where do you stand? Hope looked at Sam. He cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable being the center of attention. I think you should stay. The words came out stiff. You work hard. You know things about fixing stuff that I don't know yet, and you treat the little ones decent. He paused. I still don't trust you, but I think you should stay. Caleb nodded. Thank you, Sam. Lily stepped forward. You're healing. Not just your shoulder, but something inside. I can see it. She tilted her head. Broken things shouldn't be thrown away just because they're broken. They should be fixed. Wren pushed to the front. I already said my piece when I brought you here. You should stay forever. End of story. Eli nodded vigorously. Me too. You should stay and be our new pa. The word hit Caleb like a physical blow. Eli. Hope's voice was sharp. We talked about this, but I want him to stay. That doesn't mean you call him pa. Pa was pa. Nobody else is pa. Eli's lower lip trembled. But I don't even remember pa. I was only 3. I don't gotta pay like you and Sam do. All I got is nothing. The silence that followed was crushing. Lily knelt down beside her brother. Eli pa's still in your heart. Just because you don't remember his face doesn't mean I don't want him in my heart. Eli's voice broke. I want a real pa. One that's here. One that picks me up and teaches me stuff and tucks me in at night. Tears spilled down his cheeks. Hope's got memories. Sam's got memories. Even Wren remembers some things. But I don't got nothing. It ain't fair. Caleb couldn't breathe. This small boy, this innocent child, who'd never known his father, was standing in front of him, with tears streaming down his face, asking for something Caleb had no right to give. He knelt down so he was at Eli's level. Eli, look at me. The boy looked up, wiping his eyes with his fist. I ain't your pa. I can never be your pa. Your pa was a good man who loved you, and your brothers and sisters, and your mom more than anything in the world. He died trying to help people, trying to do what was right. That's the kind of man he was. Eli sniffled. But he's gone. Yeah, he's gone. And that ain't fair. You're right about that. Caleb's voice was rough. But here's what I can tell you. If I stay, I'll teach you anything I know. I'll help you with chores and answer your questions and make sure you're safe. I'll be here. But I can't be your pa's son. That's a place in your heart that belongs to him, even if you don't remember his face. Eli stared at him for a long moment. Then he threw his arms around Caleb's neck and held on tight. Okay, the boy whispered. Okay, Mr. Caleb. Caleb held him, feeling the small body shake with leftover sobs, and something in his chest cracked wide open. When he looked up, Hope was watching him. Her expression had changed, not soft exactly, but something other than hostility. "Rosie," she said quietly, "what do you think?" The 3-year-old considered the question with great seriousness. Then she toddled forward and patted Caleb's head with her sticky hand. "Nice," she declared. "Stay." Hope almost smiled. "That's 5 votes for staying." She looked at her siblings. "And 1 undecided." "You never said where you stand," Sam pointed out. Hope was quiet for a long moment. She looked at Caleb, still kneeling on the ground, with Eli wrapped around his neck. "I don't trust you," she said finally. "I don't know if I ever will. You're Army. You're everything I was taught to hate." Her voice hardened. "But you make my ma less tired. You make my brother smile. And Ren hasn't stopped talking about you since the day she found you." She stepped closer. "If you hurt them, any of them, I will make you regret it. I don't care how big you are or how many men you killed in the war. I will find a way to destroy you." "Are we clear?" "Clear as glass," Caleb said quietly. Hope nodded once. "Then you can stay. For now." She turned and walked back toward the house. The other children followed Eli, finally releasing his grip on Caleb's neck to run after his siblings. Only Ren lingered. "Told you," she said, grinning. "I knew they'd vote yes. You set this whole thing up, didn't you?" "Maybe." She shrugged. "Ma says democracy is important. Everybody gets a voice, even the little ones." She skipped off toward the house, leaving Caleb alone in the gathering darkness. He sat down heavily on the granary steps and pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes. 6 children had just voted for him to stay. 6 children who had every reason to fear men like him had looked at him and decided he was worth keeping. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he did neither. Just sat there in the dark and let the weight of their trust settle on his shoulders like a yoke. He'd carried guilt for years, carried shame and regret and the knowledge of every terrible thing he'd done. But trust was heavier. Trust meant he couldn't fail them, couldn't let them down, couldn't become what Clara feared he might be. The door to the house opened. Lamplight spilled across the yard. Clara stood silhouetted in the doorway watching him. "Heard there was a vote," she called out. Caleb stood. "Seems like there was. And 5-1, in favor of staying." Clara was quiet for a moment. "Let me guess. Hope was the one," she said, undecided. "That's as close to yes as Hope gets these days." Clara stepped out onto the porch, pulling a shawl around her shoulders against the evening chill. She crossed the yard, slowly stopping a few feet away from him. "Eli called you Pa. I told him I couldn't be that." "I heard." Clara's voice was soft. "You handled it well. Better than I would have. He's a good boy. He just misses something he never had. They all do. Just shows different. Hope's angry. Sam's trying to fill shoes too big for him. Lily's gone quiet. Ren's turned wild. Eli's hungry for something he can't name. And Rosie." Clara's voice caught. "Rosie won't even know what she's missing until she's old enough to understand." Caleb didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Clara looked up at the sky. Stars were coming out sharp and bright. Ezra used to say that every star was a soul watching over us. She smiled sadly. "I used to think that was beautiful. Now I just think it's lonely. All those souls up there, and not one of them can reach down and help. Maybe they sent me instead." The words came out before Caleb could stop them. Clara looked at him sharply. "I don't mean—" He ran a hand through his hair. "I just mean maybe there's a reason Ren found me that day. Maybe there's a reason I didn't die at that trading post. Maybe what? Maybe I'm supposed to be here. To help. To do something good for once in my miserable life." Clara stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something he didn't expect. She laughed. It wasn't cruel, wasn't mocking, just surprised like the sound had escaped before she could catch it. "You sound like him," she said. "Like Ezra. He believed in providence too. Believed everything happened for a reason. Do you believe that I believe in getting up every morning and doing what needs to be done?" Clara wrapped her shawl tighter. "I believe in feeding my children and keeping them safe and fighting like hell to hold on to what's ours. I believe in being too stubborn to quit even when quitting makes sense." She met his eyes. "But maybe I'm starting to believe in you too. Just a little." The words hung in the air between them. Caleb felt something shift, something that had been wound tight for weeks, finally starting to loosen. "I won't let you down. Don't make promises you can't keep." "I'm not making a promise." Caleb's voice was steady. "I'm making a statement. I won't let you down. Whatever happens, whatever comes, I will stand between your family and anything that tries to hurt them." Clara's eyes searched his face, looking for lies, looking for weakness. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her. "Breakfast is at dawn," she said. "Don't be late." She turned and walked back to the house. At the door she paused. "And Caleb." Her voice was soft enough that the children wouldn't hear. "The spare room off the kitchen. It's warmer than the granary. Cleaner too. If you wanted to." She trailed off. It wouldn't mean anything. "Just practical. I'll get my things." Clara nodded once and disappeared inside. Caleb stood alone in the starlight, feeling like he'd just passed a test he hadn't known he was taking. A room in the house. Not the granary. Not exile. A room where the family lived. He gathered his few belongings and walked toward the light. Behind him, the granary stood empty. The place where he'd almost died, where he'd fought fever and despair, where he'd first started to believe he might be worth saving. Ahead of him was the house. The family. The future he hadn't dared to hope for. He crossed the threshold and didn't look back. The next morning, everything changed. A rider appeared on the horizon just after dawn. Caleb saw him first. He was chopping wood near the house building up stores for winter when movement caught his eye. Single rider, good horse, coming slow and deliberate. Something in the way the man sat. His saddle made Caleb's neck prickle. Clara. She came out of the house at his tone. Saw the rider, her whole body went rigid. "Get the children inside. They're doing chores. Inside, now." Something in his voice made her move without arguing. She called out sharp and quick, and children appeared from all directions. Hope from the laundry, Sam from the barn, Lily from the garden, Ren and Eli from wherever they'd been playing. House. Now. All of you. "Ma, what's now?" "Hope." The children disappeared inside. Clara turned back to Caleb. "You know who that is, no. But I know trouble when I see it." She went into the house and came back with a rifle, handed it to him without a word. The rider reached the yard and stopped. He was older, maybe 55-60, silver hair under a black hat, expensive coat, clean boots that had never seen a day's hard work. But it was his eyes that Caleb noticed most. Cold, calculating, the eyes of a man who'd learned to smile while sliding a knife between someone's ribs. Well, well. The man's voice was smooth as honey poured over broken glass. "Mrs. Hollister, looking lovely as ever. Mr. Blackwood." Clara's voice could have frozen water. "What do you want, Blackwood?" The name clicked in Caleb's memory. Eli had mentioned it. The man who'd tried to take their land. Just a friendly visit. Blackwood's eyes slid to Caleb. "I see you've acquired some help. Times must be improving. State your business or leave." Blackwood chuckled. "Still direct as a bullet. That's what I always appreciated about you, Clara. No games, no pretense." He leaned forward in his saddle. "I'm here to make you an offer. A generous one. The land your husband left you, I'm prepared to pay twice what it's worth. Cash money. Enough for you and your..." His eyes counted the windows where children's faces pressed against glass. Extensive family, to relocate somewhere more suitable. This land isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, my dear. It's just a matter of finding the right price. Blackwood's smile widened. Or the right pressure. Is that a threat? Merely an observation. Blackwood's eyes moved to Caleb again. Though, I confess, I'm curious about your new friend. I don't believe we've met. Caleb stepped forward. Name's Caleb Mercer. Something flickered in Blackwood's eyes. Recognition. Surprise. Then, carefully controlled interest. Mercer. Now that's a name I haven't heard in years. He tilted his head. 8th Cavalry, if I remember correctly. Served under Colonel Whitmore. Made quite a reputation for yourself before your departure. Caleb felt ice form in his veins. You seem to know a lot about me. I make it my business to know things. Information is power, Mr. Mercer. Surely the Army taught you that. What else do you know? I know you were present at Cedar Falls in '68. I know what happened there. And I know that you've been running from it ever since. Blackwood's smile turned sharp. Does Mrs. Hollister know about the women and children? About what your regiment did? Caleb's hand tightened on the rifle. Cedar Falls. The name that haunted his nightmares. The village, the screaming. The I know exactly what he was. Clara's voice cut through. And I know what he is now. She stepped up beside Caleb shoulder to shoulder. Whatever you're trying to do, it won't work. Blackwood studied them both for a long moment. How touching. The widow and the war criminal playing house together. He gathered his reins. I'll give you time to consider my offer, Clara. Let's say 30 days. After that, I'm afraid I'll have to explore other options. Get off my land. I'm going. Blackwood tipped his hat. But I'll be back. I always come back. He turned his horse and rode away at a leisurely pace. Caleb watched him go, rifle still gripped in both hands, fury and fear warring in his chest. Cedar Falls. He'd thought that name was buried, thought no one remembered. But Blackwood knew, and Blackwood was the kind of man who used what he knew. What happened at Cedar Falls? Clara's voice was quiet, not accusatory, just asking. Caleb closed his eyes. The worst thing I ever did. He felt her hand on his arm. Light, brief, gone before he could register the warmth. Tell me, when you're ready. But tell me. Because whatever's coming, I need to know what we're facing. Caleb opened his eyes and looked at this woman who'd taken in a dying stranger and let him into her home. She deserved the truth, even if it destroyed whatever fragile thing was growing between them. Tonight, he said, after the children are asleep, I'll tell you everything. Clara nodded. Then she went inside to reassure her children that everything was fine. And Caleb stood alone in the yard, rifle in hand, watching the horizon where Blackwood had disappeared. 30 days. Whatever was coming, it was coming fast. And Cedar Falls was about to rise from the grave. The children went to bed early that night. Clara hustled them through supper, through chores, through prayers. No arguments, no delays. Even Eli sensed something in the air and didn't ask his usual 100 questions. By 8 o'clock, the house was quiet. Clara poured 2 cups of coffee and set one in front of Caleb at the kitchen table. She sat across from him, hands wrapped around her own cup, and waited. The fire crackled. Wind whispered against the windows. Somewhere outside, an owl called. Caleb stared at the dark liquid in his cup and tried to find the words he'd buried for 8 years. Cedar Falls, he said finally. Winter of '68. Small settlement in Nebraska territory. Mostly Pawnee, but some white families too. Traders, missionaries, folks who'd married into the tribe. Clara didn't move, didn't speak, just listened. We'd been tracking a war party for 2 weeks. Lakota raiders who'd hit a wagon train near the Platte River. Killed 14 people, including 3 children. Command wanted blood. Caleb's jaw tightened. We were all angry, all wanting justice. But somewhere along the way, the mission changed. changed how Colonel Whitmore got word that the raiders had passed through Cedar Falls, that the settlement had given them shelter, food, fresh horses. He paused. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. We never found out for sure. What happened? Caleb closed his eyes. We hit the village at dawn. 200 soldiers against maybe 60 warriors. But it wasn't just warriors there. It was families, old people, women, children. His voice cracked. The colonel gave the order to spare no one. Said they were all guilty by association. Said harboring enemies made them enemies. Clara's face had gone pale. And you followed that order? Caleb opened his eyes. Met hers. No. The word hung in the air. I didn't fire a single shot at anyone who wasn't armed. I pulled back, refused to participate. But I also didn't stop it. I stood there and watched while men I'd served with, men I'd trusted, slaughtered people who were running, begging, trying to protect their children. His hands were shaking. 37 dead by the time it was over. 11 of them children. And I just watched. Clara's cup clattered against the table. She'd set it down too hard. Her hands were trembling too. Why didn't you stop it? Because I was a coward. Caleb's voice was raw. Because I was scared. Because part of me believed what the colonel said, that these people had helped the enemy, that they deserved what they got. I told myself I was staying neutral, staying clean, but there's no clean in a massacre. You're either fighting against it or you're part of it. Silence fell between them. Clara stood up abruptly, walked to the window, stood with her back to him. That's why Blackwood knows you, she said. He was there. Quartermaster. Never saw combat, but he saw everything else. Kept records. Names, dates, body counts. Caleb's fists clenched. He's been building power ever since. Uses what he knows about men like me to get what he wants. And what does he want from us? The land. The water rights. Caleb pushed back from the table. Your property sits on the only reliable water source for 20 miles. Whoever controls it controls the whole valley. Clara turned to face him. That's why he's been pushing so hard. All these years. He tried to get it legally first. When that didn't work, he tried intimidation. Now he's got leverage. Caleb met her eyes. Me. He's going to use what he knows about Cedar Falls to turn people against you. Make you look like a fool, or worse, for taking me in. Then maybe you should leave. The words cut deeper than any blade. Is that what you want? Clara's jaw tightened. I want my children safe. I want to keep this land that my husband died protecting. I want to not have to choose between those things. She crossed her arms. But no, I don't want you to leave. Caleb felt something release in his chest. Even knowing what I did, you didn't do anything. You stood by while others did. Clara's voice was hard. That's not the same thing. It's close enough. No, it's not. She stepped toward him. My husband stood by too at first, when the army started rounding up the Cheyenne. When they started letting them starve in camps. He followed orders. Did what he was told. Tried to convince himself it was necessary. What changed Fort Robinson? Clara's eyes burned. He watched children dying of hunger and disease while the army held back medicine and food. He watched mothers giving up the last of their rations so their babies could eat, then dying themselves. And something inside him broke. She was close to him now, close enough that he could see the tears she was fighting. He made a choice, Caleb. He stopped following orders and started following his conscience. And they killed him for it. She grabbed his shirt, fingers twisting in the fabric. But at least he died knowing he'd finally done the right thing. I don't know if I can do what he did. Yes, you do. Clara's grip tightened. You already are. You're standing here instead of running. You're facing what you did instead of hiding from it. You're choosing to protect people instead of hurt them. She released him, stepped back. That's all redemption is, Caleb. It's not erasing the past. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's choosing every single day to be better than you were, to do better than you did. Caleb stared at her. This woman who had every reason to hate him, who had lost her husband to the same machine that had made Caleb into a weapon, who was standing in front of him now offering something that looked terrifyingly like forgiveness. Why, he asked. Why aren't you throwing me out? Because Ren brought you here for a reason. Clara's voice softened. Because my children voted to keep you. Because somewhere under all that guilt and shame, there's a good man trying to dig himself out. She turned away, gathering the coffee cups. And because I'm tired, Caleb, tired of carrying everything alone, tired of fighting the whole world with nothing but stubbornness and a rifle. She set the cups in the wash basin. If Blackwood's coming for us, I'd rather face him with you beside me than face him alone. Caleb moved without thinking. He crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and took her hand. Clara froze. You won't face him alone, he said. Whatever happens, whatever he throws at us, you won't face it alone. She looked down at their joined hands, then up at his face. Something passed between them, something neither of them was ready to name. Then Clara pulled her hand away. Get some sleep, she said quietly. Tomorrow we start preparing. Preparing for what? For war. She walked out of the kitchen without looking back. Caleb stood alone in the firelight, his hand still warm where hers had been. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Caleb reinforced the barn doors, built shutters that could be barred from inside, dug a root cellar deep enough to hide in if trouble came at night. Sam worked beside him without complaint. The boy had heard whispers of what was coming enough to understand the danger enough to stop questioning and start acting. You think he'll really come back? Sam asked one afternoon. They were building a fence around the well, something solid enough to defend if needed. Caleb drove a nail home. Men like Blackwood always come back. They don't know how to let things go. What are we going to do when he does whatever we have to? Sam was quiet for a moment. Pa would have tried to talk to him, find a peaceful solution. Your pa was a good man. Yeah. Sam's voice cracked. And they killed him for it. Caleb stopped working, looked at the boy. Sam was trying so hard to be strong, trying so hard to be the man of the house. But underneath the bravado was a 12-year-old kid who'd lost his father and didn't know how to carry the weight that had fallen on his shoulders. Sam, listen to me. The boy looked up. Your pa tried to make peace, and it cost him his life. But that doesn't mean he was wrong. It means the world wasn't ready for him. Caleb put a hand on Sam's shoulder. Sometimes the peaceful way doesn't work. Sometimes you have to fight. But you never start with fighting. You always try the other thing first. What if the other thing fails? Then you fight like hell, and you don't stop until your family is safe. Sam stared at him for a long moment. Is that what you're gonna do? Fight for us? Yeah, son, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Sam nodded slowly. Then he picked up his hammer and went back to work. But something had changed in his posture. Something had eased. He wasn't carrying the weight alone anymore. Hope found Caleb that evening. She was waiting for him outside the barn, arms crossed, face set in that expression he'd come to recognize as her, thinking hard about something she didn't want to think about. Can I talk to you? Caleb set down the tools he was carrying. Always. Hope looked at her feet, then at the sky, then finally at him. I heard what you told Ma about Cedar Falls. The words hit him like ice water. You were listening. I listened to everything. Someone has to. Hope's jaw tightened. I needed to know what kind of man my mother was letting into our home. And now you know. Yeah. Hope finally met his eyes. Now I know. Silence stretched between them. You want me to leave? Caleb said. It wasn't a question. That's not... Hope stopped, started again. I don't know what I want. I thought I did. I thought I had you figured out from the moment Ren dragged you home. Bad man. Dangerous. Someone to get rid of as soon as possible. And now I don't know. Hope's voice wavered. You did something terrible, but you didn't do it yourself. You watched. You let it happen. Is that better or worse? I can't figure it out. It's not better, Caleb said quietly. Watching evil happen and doing nothing to stop it, that's its own kind of evil. Then why should I trust you? You shouldn't. Not based on who I was. Caleb held her gaze. But maybe you could trust who I'm trying to be. The man who's stayed, who's worked, who wants to protect your family instead of hurt it. Hope was quiet for a long time. Pa used to say everyone deserves a second chance, she said finally. I thought that was naive, thought it was weakness. She swallowed hard. But maybe it was just the opposite. Maybe giving someone a chance to change is the hardest, bravest thing you can do. She stepped closer. I'm not forgiving you. I don't know if I can do that. But I'm choosing to give you a chance. Don't make me regret it. I won't. Hope nodded once. Then she walked away toward the house. Caleb watched her go and felt something shift inside him. Hope's trust was different from the others. It wasn't given freely like Wren's or Eli's. It wasn't pragmatic like Clara's or reluctant like Sam's. It was a choice. A deliberate, hard-won choice to believe in the possibility of change. That made it the most precious gift any of them had given him. The storm came 3 days later. Not Blackwood. Not yet. An actual storm. The kind that rolled in from the mountains, with winds that screamed like dying things, and snow that fell so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Caleb had seen storms before, had survived them on the plains with nothing but a horse and a prayer, but he'd never seen one this bad. Everyone inside. Clara's voice cut through the howling wind. Now! The children scrambled. Caleb helped Lily carry the youngest chickens into the barn, then grabbed Eli when the boy slipped in the rapidly accumulating snow. I got you. Hold on. He carried Eli to the house and deposited him inside. Clara was counting heads, making sure everyone was accounted for. Hope, Sam, Lily, Wren, Eli, Rosie. She stopped. Where's Rosie? The color drained from her face. She was right here, Hope said. Right behind me. Rosie. Clara's voice went shrill. Rosie. No answer. Just the roar of the wind. Caleb was moving before he could think. Stay here, he ordered. Keep the children inside. He plunged into the storm. The cold hit him like a wall. Snow drove into his face, his eyes, his lungs. He couldn't see more than 3 feet in any direction. Rosie, he shouted. Rosie, where are you? Nothing. He pushed forward, fighting through drifts that were already knee-deep. The barn? She might have gone to the barn. She loved the animals. He found her behind the chicken coop. 3 years old. Golden curls plastered to her face. Blue lips. Eyes closed. She was so small, so cold, so still. Caleb scooped her up and pressed her against his chest, wrapping his coat around her tiny body. Hold on, baby. Hold on. He ran. The wind tried to push him back. The snow tried to blind him. His feet slipped on ice, and he went down hard, twisting to protect Rosie from the impact. Pain shot through his shoulder, the old wound screaming. He got up, kept running. The house appeared through the white curtain. The door flew open, and Clara was there reaching for her daughter. Give her to me. She's breathing. Barely. Get her warm. They stumbled inside. Clara stripped off Rosie's wet clothes and wrapped her in blankets. Sat by the fire, rocking her, rubbing her hands, calling her name. Come on, baby. Come on. Open your eyes for Mama. The other children huddled together, terrified. Wren was crying. Eli had his face buried in Hope's shoulder. Sam stood rigid, fists clenched. Caleb knelt beside Clara, adding his warmth, rubbing Rosie's tiny feet. Minutes passed. Hours. Years. Then Rosie coughed. Her eyes fluttered open. Mama, I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Cold. Rosie's voice was barely a whisper. I got cold. I know, sweetheart. I know. Clara was crying now, tears streaming down her face. But you're warm now. You're safe. Rosie's eyes found Caleb. Nice man, she mumbled. Nice man found me. Then she closed her eyes and fell asleep. Clara looked at Caleb. Her face was wet with tears, her hair wild, her whole body shaking. You saved her. I just found her. You saved her. Clara's voice broke. She would have died. 3 more minutes, and she would have died. Caleb couldn't speak. His throat had closed up. Clara reached out and gripped his hand. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you. She didn't let go. Neither did he. They sat like that through the night, holding on to each other, while the storm raged outside and a small child slept between them. And somewhere in those dark hours, something changed between them. Something neither of them had expected. Something neither of them was ready for. But something that was undeniably, irrevocably real. The storm broke by morning. Caleb opened his eyes to pale sunlight filtering through the windows. He was still sitting by the fire, still holding Clara's hand. She was asleep, Rosie cradled in her lap. Both of them peaceful. Both of them safe. He didn't want to move. Didn't want to break whatever spell had fallen over them in the night. But the world doesn't stop for moments like these. Wren's voice came from the window. Ma, Mr. Caleb, someone's coming. Caleb was on his feet in an instant. He crossed to the window and looked out. 3 riders, coming from the east, moving fast through the snow. And at the front, silver hair gleaming in the morning light, rode Judge Cornelius Blackwood. He'd come for his answer. And the 30 days weren't up. Clara appeared beside Caleb, Rosie still in her arms. How many? 3. Armed. Can't tell from here. Probably. Clara turned to Hope. Take your brothers and sisters to the root cellar. Don't come out until I say. Ma, now Hope. Hope gathered the children. Eli was crying. Wren was silent, her face pale. Sam looked like he wanted to stay and fight, but one look from his mother sent him following the others. The door to the cellar closed. Clara handed Rosie to Caleb. Put her somewhere safe. He settled the sleeping child on a cot in the corner wrapped in blankets. When he turned back, Clara had the rifle in her hands. Whatever happens, she said, we don't let them take this land. We won't. And Caleb. She met his eyes. Whatever you were at Cedar Falls, you're not that man anymore. You proved that last night. She opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. Caleb grabbed his own rifle and followed. The riders had stopped at the edge of the yard. Blackwood sat his horse like a king surveying his kingdom. The 2 men with him were big, rough, the kind of men who did dirty work for pay. Mrs. Hollister. Blackwood's voice was pleasant. Survived the storm, I see. No thanks to you. Now. I'm not responsible for the weather. He smiled. I'm here for your answer. The offer still stands. Twice what the land is worth. And my answer still stands. Not for sale. Blackwood sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. He nodded to his men. They started to dismount. Caleb stepped forward, rifle raised. That's far enough. Blackwood's eyes found him. Ah, Mr. Mercer. Still here, I see. I thought perhaps you'd have the wisdom to leave after our last conversation. I'm not going anywhere. How noble. How foolish. Blackwood's voice hardened. Do you really think your presence here changes anything? One broken-down soldier against the weight of everything I can bring to bear. Try me. The words came out cold, hard, the voice of a man who'd killed before and would kill again if pushed. Blackwood studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed. Perhaps another time. He gathered his reins. You have 2 weeks, Mrs. Hollister. 2 weeks to reconsider. After that, I'm afraid I'll have to take more direct action. Get off my land. I'm going. But remember what I said. Blackwood's eyes moved to Caleb. Both of you. He turned his horse and rode away, his men following. Caleb kept his rifle raised until they disappeared over the rise. Then he lowered it and looked at Clara. 2 weeks, he said. Then we better get ready. She went back inside to gather her children from the cellar. Caleb stood on the porch watching the horizon where Blackwood had vanished. 2 weeks. Whatever was coming, it was coming fast. And he'd be damned if he let it take this family from him. The days that followed Blackwood's visit were quiet in a way that felt like holding your breath before a scream. Caleb worked from dawn until his hands bled. Reinforcing, preparing, building walls that might have to hold against more than weather. Clara worked beside him now, not watching from a distance anymore. Shoulder to shoulder, passing tools, holding boards steady while he hammered. They didn't talk about what had happened the night of the storm. The hands held in firelight. The something that had shifted between them. But it was there. In every accidental touch. Every glance that lasted too long. Every moment when their eyes met and neither looked away. Sam noticed first. "You and Ma," he said one afternoon. They were stacking firewood against the barn, enough to last through whatever was coming. Caleb kept working. "What about us?" "Something's different." Sam's voice was careful, the way you look at each other. "Your Ma's a good woman. That's not what I'm asking." Caleb set down the wood he was carrying. "What are you asking, Sam?" The boy was quiet for a moment. "Pa's been gone 3 years. Ma hasn't looked at anyone since he died. Not once. Now she looks at you and her face changes, gets softer, like she's remembering how to smile." Sam met his eyes. "If you're gonna break her heart, tell me now. I'd rather know." Caleb felt something tighten in his chest. "I'm not gonna break her heart." "You sure about that?" "No." Caleb was honest. "I'm not sure about anything except that I'd die before I'd hurt her or any of you." Sam considered this. "Then I guess that's enough. For now." He picked up another armload of wood and walked away. Caleb stood there in the cold air realizing that he'd just asked a 12-year-old boy for permission to love his mother. And the boy had given it. Hope cornered him that night. The children were in bed. Clara was checking the livestock. Caleb was cleaning rifles at the kitchen table when Hope appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk about Blackwood." Caleb looked up. "What about him?" "He's not going to stop." "You know that, right? 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. He'll keep coming until he gets what he wants." "I know. So what's the plan?" Hope crossed her arms. "And don't tell me you're just going to shoot him. That's not a plan? That's a way to get hanged." Caleb set down the rifle he was cleaning. "Blackwood's power comes from what he knows. Secrets he's collected over the years. Leverage he holds over people. Like Cedar Falls. Like Cedar Falls." Caleb met her eyes. But secrets work both ways. A man like Blackwood, he didn't get where he is by being clean. He's got dirt of his own buried somewhere. You want to find it. I want to take away his power, make him afraid for once instead of making everyone else afraid. Hope was quiet for a moment. "There's a man in town. Abel Finch. He runs the trading post. He's known Blackwood for 30 years. She stepped closer. Pa trusted him. Said Abel was one of the few honest men left in the territory. You think he'd help? I think he'd at least talk." Hope's jaw tightened. He tried to warn Pa about Fort Robinson. Tried to tell him it was too dangerous. Pa didn't listen. "What else do you know about him?" "He lost his wife to fever 10 years back. Got a son somewhere back east. Doesn't like Blackwood, but he's never had proof of anything he could use against him." She paused. "He also delivered me when I was born. Rode through a blizzard to get to our old place in time. Sounds like a good man." "He is." Hope moved toward the door. "I'll write him a letter. Ask him to come out here. See if he'll meet with you." "Hope." She stopped. "Thank you for trusting me with this." Hope didn't turn around. "I'm not trusting you. I'm trusting Pa's memory." He believed everyone deserved a chance to do the right thing. Then she was gone. Abel Finch arrived 4 days later. He was older than Caleb expected. 60 at least, with a weathered face and hands that had seen decades of hard work. But his eyes were sharp, and when he looked at Caleb, there was measuring in that gaze. "So you're the one Clara took in?" "Yes, sir." Abel grunted. "Heard stories. Some good, some not so good. The not so good ones are probably true." Abel accepted the cup of coffee Clara offered. "At least you're honest about it. That's more than most." They sat at the kitchen table. Clara, Caleb, and Abel. The children were outside, given strict instructions to stay close, but stay out. "Hope tells me you've got questions about Blackwood." "I've got questions about how to stop him," Caleb said. "Permanently." Abel was quiet for a long moment. Cornelius Blackwood came to this territory 30 years ago with nothing but ambition and a willingness to do whatever it took to get ahead. He started as a quartermaster in the army, made connections, learned secrets, figured out how to turn information into power. That much we know. What you might not know is how he got his start. Abel leaned forward. "Back in '62 there was a wagon train that went missing near the Platte River. 43 people, men, women, children, never found a trace. Indians. That's what everyone assumed. Lakota Raiders were active in the area. But I had a friend who was scouting for the army back then. He found something. Tracks leading away from where the wagons were attacked. Boot prints mixed with moccasin prints. White men and Indians working together. That's what he thought." Abel's face darkened. He tried to report it, but the army wasn't interested. Easier to blame the Indians. Cleaner. "My friend kept digging on his own. Found out someone had been selling information to raiding parties. Telling them which wagons were carrying valuables, which routes were undefended. And you think that someone was Blackwood? I think Blackwood came out of nowhere with enough money to buy his first piece of land about 6 months after that wagon train disappeared." Abel's eyes met Caleb's. "Draw your own conclusions." Clara's face had gone pale. "He was selling out his own people." "If I'm right, he was doing worse than that. He was getting them killed for profit." Caleb felt cold rage building in his chest. "Can you prove any of this?" "My friend kept notes, wrote down everything he found. Names, dates, places. He was going to take it to the territorial governor. But he died before he could. Fell off his horse, they said. Broke his neck." Abel's voice was bitter. "Awful convenient timing, if you ask me." "Where are those notes now?" Abel reached into his coat and pulled out a leather-wrapped bundle. "I've had them for 20 years. Kept them hidden. Too scared to use them, too stubborn to destroy them." He set the bundle on the table. Maybe it's time they finally did some good. Clara stared at the bundle. This could destroy him, or it could get us all killed. Abel looked at each of them in turn. Blackwood's got friends everywhere. Law, politics, business. If we move against him, we better be sure we can finish it. Because if we miss, he won't. Caleb picked up the bundle. Felt the weight of it in his hands. "How do we use this?" "There's a circuit judge coming through in 2 weeks, Abel said. "Judge Morrison? He's honest. Incorruptible. If anyone can take down Blackwood, it's him." 2 weeks. Caleb's jaw tightened. "That's the same deadline Blackwood gave us." "I know." Abel stood up. "Which means whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen fast. You need to be ready." "We will be." Abel turned to leave, then stopped. "Clara, your husband was a good man. Best I ever knew. He'd be proud of what you've done here, keeping this family together against everything that's tried to tear it apart." "Thank you, Abel." "Don't thank me yet." The old man's face was grim. "Thank me when this is over, and we're all still breathing." He walked out into the cold afternoon. Clara and Caleb sat at the table in silence. Finally, Clara spoke. "Can we really do this?" "We have to." Caleb looked at her. "Blackwood's not going to stop. You said it yourself. This is the only way. But the risk—" "I know." He reached across the table and took her hand. But I'd rather fight and lose than spend the rest of my life running. Clara looked at their joined hands. Ezra used to say the same thing. She smiled sadly. Right before he got himself killed. I'm not Ezra. No. Clara's eyes met his. You're not. She didn't pull her hand away. Neither did he. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Caleb rode to 3 neighboring homesteads, talked to families who'd felt Blackwood's pressure over the years, found allies he hadn't expected. Tom Garrett, who'd lost half his herd to rustlers that Blackwood's men had miraculously driven off for a price. Sarah Whitmore, whose husband had signed over mineral rights under duress and died of shame 6 months later. Ben Cooper, who'd watched Blackwood foreclose on his father's property over a debt that had never existed in the first place. They all had stories. They all had grievances. And they were all tired of being afraid. We stand together, Caleb told them. All of us. When Judge Morrison arrives, we present everything we have. Every story, every piece of evidence, every witness. We bury Blackwood so deep he never sees daylight again. And if it doesn't work, Tom Garrett asked. Then we defended ourselves and our families. We tried to do the right thing. Caleb's voice was steady. That's more than most men can say. One by one they agreed. The coalition was fragile, frightened. But it was real. 5 days before Judge Morrison was due to arrive, Wren disappeared. Clara noticed first. Called her for supper and got no answer. Sent Sam to check the barn, the creek, the fields. Nothing. Ma? Hope's voice was strange, tight. Ma, come look at this. On the kitchen table was a note. Clara's hands shook as she read it. Mrs. Hollister, your daughter is safe for now. She will remain safe as long as you do exactly as I say. Sign over the deed to your property and leave the territory by tomorrow noon. If you refuse, or if you contact anyone about this situation, you will never see the child again. You know I am a man of my word. No signature, none was needed. Clara's face went white, then red, then something beyond color, beyond expression. No. The word came out broken. No, no, no. Caleb grabbed her before her knees gave out. I'll get her back. How? Clara's voice cracked. How? He has her. He took my baby and I didn't even notice. I was supposed to protect her. I was supposed to keep her safe. This isn't your fault. She's 8 years old. Clara was screaming now. She's 8 years old, and that monster has her because of me, because I wouldn't give him what he wanted, because I was too stubborn to let go of a piece of land. Hope took Rosie and the others to the back room. Sam stood frozen by the door. Caleb held Clara while she shook. I will get her back, he said again. I swear to you on my life. I will bring her home. Clara pulled back, looked at him with eyes that were wild with fear and grief. How I'm going to give Blackwood exactly what he wants. Clara stared at him. The deed. You want me to sign over the deed? No. Caleb's voice was cold, hard, the voice of a soldier preparing for battle. I'm going to give him me. What he wants leverage. He wants to destroy me. Fine. I'll walk right into his hands. And while he's focused on me, someone else gets Wren out. That's suicide. Maybe. Caleb cupped her face in his hands. But your daughter is worth dying for. This family is worth dying for. Clara's eyes filled with tears. I can't lose you too. You won't. You don't know that. Caleb leaned forward and pressed his forehead against hers. I know that I've spent my whole life running from what I did at Cedar Falls. Running from who I was. Running from everything that made me ashamed to be alive. He closed his eyes. But I'm done running. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm going to face it. Not because I'm not afraid, because I finally found something worth being brave for. He pulled back. Clara's tears were falling freely now. I love you, she whispered. I didn't want to. I tried so hard not to. But I love you. I love you too. It was the first time either of them had said it out loud. The words hung in the air between them. Simple, true, terrifying. Then Clara wiped her eyes and her face hardened. "Tell me the plan." Caleb told her. By midnight, everything was in place. Sam would ride to the Garrett farm and bring back reinforcements. Hope would take the younger children to Abel's trading post for safety. And Caleb would walk into Blackwood's compound at dawn and offer himself in exchange for Wren. What Clara didn't know was the rest of the plan, the part where Caleb had no intention of surviving. He'd made peace with it during the long hours of preparation. Some debts could only be paid in blood. Some sins could only be washed clean by sacrifice. He'd spent 8 years running from Cedar Falls, from the faces of the dead, from the weight of what he'd witnessed and done nothing to stop. Now he had a chance to do something, to save an innocent child, to protect a family that had given him more than he deserved. If that cost him his life, so be it. At least he'd die for something good. Caleb slipped out of the house before dawn. He'd said goodbye to each of the children the night before, hugged them, told them to be brave, told them to take care of each other and their mother. Eli had cried. Rosie had clung to his neck. Hope had looked at him with eyes that understood more than she should. Sam had shaken his hand like a man. "You come back," Sam said. "You hear me? You come back. I'll try. Don't try. Do it." Caleb hadn't made any promises. He found Clara waiting for him by the barn. She was holding something, a pocket watch, old and silver and familiar. Caleb stopped. "This was Ezra's," Clara said. "His father gave it to him. He carried it every day of his life." She pressed it into Caleb's hand. "Now it's yours." "Clara, I can't." "You can. You will." She closed his fingers around the watch. "Because you're coming back. You're coming back to me and our children and this life we're building together. Our children." The words hit him like a fist. "Yes." Clara's eyes burned into his. "Our children. Mine and Ezra's, and now yours too. Because that's what family is. It's not blood. It's choice. It's showing up every day and fighting for each other." She grabbed his shirt and pulled him close. "So you're going to walk into that monster's house and you're going to get our daughter back and you're going to come home. Do you understand me? I understand. Promise me." Caleb looked into her eyes, saw the love there, the fear, the desperate hope. He couldn't lie to her, but he couldn't break her heart either. "I promise I'll do everything in my power to come back to you." Clara kissed him. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't soft. It was fierce and desperate and full of everything they hadn't had time to say. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "I love you," Clara said. "I love you too. More than I knew I could love anything." He touched her face one last time. Then he turned and walked into the darkness. Behind him, Clara watched until he disappeared. She didn't cry. She'd save her tears for later. Right now she had work to do. Because if Caleb thought she was going to sit at home and wait while he sacrificed himself for her family, he didn't know her at all. Clara walked back into the house and pulled out Ezra's old rifle. It was time for war. Blackwood's compound sat on a rise overlooking the valley like a king's castle. Caleb walked toward it in the gray light of dawn, hands empty, rifle left behind. Every step felt like walking through deep water. Every breath felt like it might be his last. He'd made his choice. Now he had to live with it, or die with it. The guards spotted him 100 yards out. 2 men with rifles positioned at the gate. That's far enough. One of them stepped forward. "State your business." Caleb stopped. "Tell Blackwood that Caleb Mercer is here. Tell him I'm ready to talk." The guards exchanged glances. One of them disappeared inside. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then the gate opened and Cornelius Blackwood stepped out. He was dressed like he was going to church. Clean suit, polished boots, silver hair perfectly combed. The picture of civilization in a land that had none. "Mr. Mercer." His voice was silk over broken glass. I must admit I didn't expect you to come alone. Where's the girl safe? For now. Blackwood smiled, though that could change depending on how this conversation goes. I'm here to make a deal. Are you? Now Blackwood clasped his hands behind his back. And what could you possibly offer me that I don't already have me? Caleb met his eyes. You want to destroy me. Use what you know about Cedar Falls. Fine, I'll give you a full confession. Written and signed, everything I saw, everything I did, everything I failed to do. Blackwood's eyes glittered with interest. And in exchange, you let the girl go. You leave Clara and her family alone. Forever. That's quite an offer. Blackwood stepped closer. But why would I settle for destroying you when I can have the land as well? Because if anything happens to that family, I'll make sure every secret you've ever buried comes out. Caleb's voice was cold. The wagon train in '62, the scouts you paid off, the families you sold to raiders for profit. Blackwood's face went still. I have documents, signed statements. Everything your old friend kept before his convenient accident. Caleb smiled. Right now, copies of those documents are on their way to Judge Morrison. If I don't walk out of here by noon with that little girl, every piece of dirt you've ever tried to hide will be on his desk before sunset. You're bluffing. Try me. The silence stretched between them. Blackwood's composure cracked. Just for a second. Just enough to show the monster underneath. Then he laughed. Well played, Mr. Mercer. Well played indeed. He gestured to his guards. Bring the girl. One of them disappeared into the compound. Minutes later, Wren appeared. She was pale, scared, but alive. The moment she saw Caleb, she tried to run to him. The guard held her back. Mr. Caleb. It's okay, little bird. Caleb kept his voice calm. It's okay. You're going home. Blackwood stepped between them. Not so fast. The girl for the confession. That was the deal. And you'll get it, after she's safe. I don't think so. Blackwood's smile turned cold. I think you'll write that confession right now, right here. And then maybe I'll consider letting her go. Caleb felt ice form in his stomach. This was the part of the plan where everything could fall apart. All right. He kept his voice steady. Give me paper. Blackwood snapped his fingers. One of his men brought writing materials. Caleb sat down on a wooden crate near the gate, picked up the pen, started writing. Cedar Falls, December 1868. I, Caleb Mercer, former cavalry officer, do hereby confess. The words came slowly, painfully, each sentence a nail in his own coffin. He wrote about the village, the attack, the women running with children in their arms, the old men trying to protect their families with weapons that couldn't compete with army rifles. He wrote about standing there, watching, doing nothing while people died. He wrote about the years after, the running, the shame, the dreams that wouldn't let him forget. By the time he finished, his hand was shaking. He signed his name at the bottom. Blackwood picked up the paper and read it with obvious satisfaction. Excellent. This is everything I need to... A rifle shot cracked the morning air. One of Blackwood's guards dropped. Then chaos. Riders came over the rise. Tom Garrett, Ben Cooper, a dozen other men from the neighboring homesteads. All armed, all angry. And leading them rifle in hand, face set like stone rode Clara. Caleb's heart stopped. No. She was supposed to stay away. She was supposed to let him handle this. But Clara had never been good at staying away from fights. Let the girl go, Blackwood. Clara's voice carried across the compound. Let her go, and we might let you live. Blackwood grabbed Wren and pulled her in front of him like a shield. One more step, and she dies. Everything went still. Caleb's mind raced. He was 10 feet from Blackwood. Too far to grab him, too close to miss if someone took a shot. Wren was crying, trying to be brave, failing. Mr. Caleb, I'm here, little bird. Caleb kept his voice calm. I'm right here. How touching. Blackwood's voice was venomous. The broken soldier and his adopted family. Do you think this changes anything? Do you think your little army of dirt farmers can stop me? You're done, Blackwood. Clara's rifle didn't waver. Whatever happens here today, you're finished. We have witnesses. We have documents. Judge Morrison will have everything he needs to put you away for the rest of your miserable life. Then I have nothing to lose, do I? Blackwood's hand moved toward his belt, toward a pistol Caleb hadn't noticed. Time slowed down. Caleb saw the gun coming up, saw it swinging toward Wren. He moved without thinking, threw himself at Blackwood. They went down together in a tangle of limbs. The pistol went off. Pain exploded through Caleb's side. But he kept going, kept fighting, wrapped his hands around Blackwood's throat and squeezed. Wren scrambled away. "Run!" Caleb shouted. "Run to your ma!" She ran. Blackwood struggled beneath him, strong for his age, desperate. But Caleb had something Blackwood didn't. He had nothing left to lose. They rolled across the ground. Blackwood got a hand free, clawed at Caleb's face, found the gunshot wound and dug his fingers in. Caleb screamed. His grip loosened. Blackwood threw him off, scrambled for the fallen pistol. Another rifle shot. Blackwood jerked, stumbled, looked down at the red spreading across his chest. He turned toward Clara, who was standing 20 feet away with smoke still rising from her rifle barrel. "You..." His voice was disbelief. "You shot me. For my husband." Clara's voice was steady. "For my children. For every family you've destroyed." Blackwood fell to his knees. This isn't how it's supposed to..." He collapsed face first in the dirt. He didn't get up. Clara dropped the rifle and ran to Caleb. He was lying on his back, one hand pressed against his side, blood seeping between his fingers. "No, no, no, no." Clara fell to her knees beside him. "Don't you dare. Don't you dare die on me. Clara, I told you to come back." Tears were streaming down her face. "I told you to promise. I promised. To do everything in my power." Caleb's voice was weak. "Didn't promise. To succeed. That's not funny. Little bit funny." Clara pressed her hands over his, trying to stop the bleeding. "Someone get a doctor." Her voice cracked. "Someone help me." Wren appeared at her side, small hands pressing down next to her mother's. "Don't die, Mr. Caleb." Her voice was fierce. "You promised to teach me how to ride proper. You can't die before you teach me. Little bird." Caleb's vision was starting to blur. "You already ride better than me. That's because I'm smart. Now stop talking and save your strength." She sounded so much like Clara. The other children gathered around. Eli was crying. Rosie was clutching her doll with huge, scared eyes. Hope had her arms around Sam, who was shaking. "Pa." Eli's voice was broken. "Pa, please don't leave." The word cut through the haze of pain. "Pa." The boy had called him Pa. Caleb reached out with his bloody hand and touched Eli's cheek. "Not going anywhere, son." Then the darkness took him. He woke up 3 days later. The first thing he saw was Clara's face. She looked terrible, eyes red from crying, hair tangled, clothes she clearly hadn't changed in days. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "You're awake." Her voice cracked. "Thank God you're awake." Caleb tried to speak. Couldn't. His throat was too dry. Clara grabbed a cup of water and helped him drink. "Don't talk. The doctor says you need rest. The bullet went through clean, but you lost a lot of blood." She brushed hair back from his forehead. "You've been in and out for 3 days. I thought... She couldn't finish. Caleb reached up and touched her face. "Still here," he whispered. Clara laughed through her tears. "You better be. I didn't drag you out of that trading post just to lose you now." The door burst open. Wren stood there, face bright with joy. "He's awake, Ma. He's awake." She ran to the bed and grabbed his hand. "Mr. Caleb, you missed everything." Judge Morrison came and arrested all of Blackwood's men. Tom Garrett's son is going to marry Sarah Whitmore's daughter. And Rosie learned a new word. She says pa now, too, just like Eli taught her. The flood of information was overwhelming, but one word stood out. Pa Wren grinned. We had another vote, while you were sleeping. It was unanimous this time. Even Hope said yes. Said yes to what? To you being our pa. Wren squeezed his hand. Official and everything. Ma says you have to get better first so we can have a proper wedding, but after that, you're ours forever. Caleb looked at Clara. She was smiling. Really smiling. The kind of smile that transformed her whole face. Seems the children have decided, she said, and I've learned never to argue with a unanimous vote. Clara? Shh. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. We'll talk when you're stronger. Right now, just rest. But rest, that's an order. Caleb wanted to argue, wanted to say everything he was feeling, but his eyes were already closing. The last thing he heard was Wren's voice chattering to someone in the hallway, Moe. And then Ma shot Blackwood right in the chest and he fell down like a sack of potatoes, and Mr. Caleb was bleeding everywhere, but he still told me to run, and... Her voice faded. Caleb slept, and for the first time in 8 years, he didn't dream of Cedar Falls. The wedding was held 6 weeks later. Not a big affair, just family and friends gathered in the yard of the homestead that Clara had fought so hard to keep. Abel Finch performed the ceremony, his weathered face beaming as he read from his old Bible. Tom Garrett stood as Caleb's witness. Sarah Whitmore stood with Clara. And lined up in front of them, scrubbed clean and dressed in their best, stood 6 children who had already decided this man was their father. Hope, Sam, Lily, Wren, Eli, Rosie, their family. Complete at last. Do you, Caleb Mercer, take this woman to be your wife? Abel's voice was solemn. To love her, honor her, stand beside her through all the days of your life, I do. Caleb's voice was steady. With everything I am. And do you? Clara May Hollister, take this man to be your husband. To love him, honor him. Stand beside him through all the days of your life. Clara looked at Caleb. At the man who had stumbled into her life half dead and had given her a reason to believe in second chances. I do, she said, with my whole heart. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Abel grinned. You may kiss your bride. Caleb pulled Clara close and kissed her while their children cheered. When they broke apart, Eli was tugging at Caleb's sleeve. Does this mean you're really our pa now? Caleb knelt down so he was eye to eye with the boy. Yeah, son. I'm really your pa now. Forever, forever. Eli threw his arms around Caleb's neck. One by one, the other children joined in. Even Hope, though she tried to pretend she was too old for hugging. Clara wrapped her arms around all of them. And in that moment, surrounded by the family he'd never expected to have, Caleb finally understood something he'd been running from his whole life. Home wasn't a place. It was people. It was choosing every single day to love and be loved. It was finding the courage to stay instead of run. 3 years passed. The homestead grew. More land cleared. More animals acquired. A second story added to the house to accommodate the expanding family. Clara gave birth to a son in the spring of their 2nd year together. They named him Ezra, after the man who had started it all. Hope turned 17 and started courting a young man from town, a school teacher with kind eyes and a gentle manner. Sam grew tall and strong, working beside Caleb every day, learning everything there was to learn about building and fixing and making things last. Lily became the valley's unofficial healer people, coming from miles around for her herbal remedies and her gentle touch. Wren never lost her wildness, but she channeled it into helping with the horses, becoming the best rider in 3 counties. Eli finally got the father he'd always wanted, following Caleb everywhere, asking questions from dawn to dusk. And Rosie, who had once barely spoken, now chattered constantly about everything under the sun. One evening, Caleb sat on the porch, watching the sun set. Clara came out and sat beside him, baby Ezra sleeping in her arms. "What are you thinking about Cedar Falls?" Clara was quiet for a moment. "Still hurts, always will." Caleb took a breath. "But it hurts different now. Less like a wound, more like a scar. Is that better, I think so?" He looked at her. "The scar reminds me of what I did wrong. But it also reminds me that I survived, that I got a chance to do better. And have you done better?" Caleb looked out at the land, at the house he'd helped build, at the children playing in the yard, at the life he'd never imagined possible. "I think maybe I have." Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "Ezra would have liked you." "You think so, I know so." She smiled. "You're both the same kind of stubborn. That's a compliment from me, highest there is." Ren came running up to the porch. "Pa Ma, come quick. Hope's young man is here, and Sam says he's going to interrogate him, and Hope says if Sam ruins this, she'll murder him in his sleep." Clara sighed. Duty calls. She stood up, handed baby Ezra to Caleb, and went to prevent sibling homicide. Caleb stayed on the porch holding his son, watching the chaos unfold. This was his life now. This beautiful, messy, impossible life. And he wouldn't trade it for anything. That night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Caleb pulled out the pocket watch Clara had given him, Ezra's watch. He opened it and looked at the photograph inside. A young man with kind eyes holding a baby who would grow up to be Hope. "Thank you," Caleb whispered to the picture, "for loving them first, for teaching them how to survive, for leaving them strong enough to let me in." He closed the watch and held it against his heart. Then he went inside to join his wife, the woman who had looked at a dying stranger and seen something worth saving. The woman who had given him a home, a family, a purpose. The woman who had loved him back to life. Years later, people would tell the story. The story of a broken cowboy who came to Colorado to die and found a reason to live instead. The story of a widow with 6 children who had the courage to trust again. The story of a family built not from blood, but from choice, from struggle, from the stubborn refusal to give up on each other. They would tell it around campfires and at kitchen tables, passing it down through generations. And the story always ended the same way. With a man who learned that redemption wasn't about erasing the past, it was about building a future worth living for. With a woman who learned that love wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about making room for something new. And with 6 children who learned that family wasn't about where you came from. It was about where you belonged. Caleb Mercer had come to that trading post ready to die. But a barefoot girl with spring green eyes had looked at him and asked a simple question. "You want to come home with me?" He'd said yes. And that single word had changed everything. Not because he deserved a second chance, but because someone decided to give him one anyway. That was the miracle. That was the grace. That was the love that saved them all.